Hello world, welcome to the 58th climate change emergency protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It's the 58th, it's January 7th. It is a wind chill factor of 20 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit, which is minus 6.7 degrees Celsius. Earlier this week it was 68 degrees or so, which is about 20 degrees Celsius. So we got a seesaw temperature thing going on right now, and that's part of climate change, is where the jet stream's all shredded and you can't count on anything. So right now it doesn't matter so much, but it did, because the orchard farmers that have peaches and cherries and stuff, their trees are starting to bud. So that's a bad thing, because then it freezes and then you don't have any peaches or cherries or whatever in the summer. So, you get the seesaw thing. So a hunger issue comes into play in the spring, most definitely. If you get cold snaps and then warm snaps and then cold again, you can wipe out your crops, which becomes a hunger issue. Australia, was still on fire. Last I heard, some places had deluges of rain, which is a real problem there, because once wildfires happen, then the deluges of rain come and it washes all the ash and soot into the creeks, and then the fish suffocate. So in a weird way, the fish survive the fires in the water, of course, but then they die because of all the lack of oxygen and the mud in the water. 80% of the Blue Mountains there were inundated with fires, and 50% of the Gondwana swamp was also inundated due to the fires. That's a rainforest. Kangaroo Island was pretty well wiped out. If you saw the videos, just type up Kangaroo Island, koalas and sheep and kangaroos, everything dead in the side of the road. Thousands of them for a couple mile stretch. So you got the rain situation. You usually get deluges of rain right after a severe fire like that, and it's the ultimate slap in the face. They refuse to acknowledge that climate change is the contributing factor, or the factor, for these fires. It's kind of like saying they refuse to acknowledge that the atomic bomb was due to the destruction of Hiroshima. They're saying it was a contributing factor to the destruction of Hiroshima, and in reality it was the factor. So the conditions were ripe for wildfires, with lightning strikes or just bottles on the ground or whatever might happen to cause the fires. So they're not out of the woods. This is just a reprieve right now that they're having right now. I don't know what the full situation is, of course, because I'm half a world away. So in Afghanistan and Pakistan, they had massive amounts of snow, which ended up being caused avalanches. And I don't know how many people died, 20 or 80 people died because of avalanches in Afghanistan, Pakistan. So basically humans are equal to the petri dish scenario, where initially you have 1 or 2 cells in a petri dish, and they sort of double every 5 minutes or 20 minutes. But eventually you get doubling and doubling and doubling. When I was a kid back in the 1960s, the Earth's population was 3 billion. So now it's pushing 8 billion. So in my lifetime, I've seen a doubling of the Earth's population, and plus another half. So it's a huge amount of people and a lot of stress on the world's environment. If people could either have no kids as couples or just have one child, the population would actually go down, and everything might be okay, sort of, kind of. But we've baked our pie now, and it's a real problem as far as surviving past 2026. So the next rally will be number 59. That's January 24th at 2 p.m. I'm going to do it then. Now back to the great news here. So you hear from the news, mega this, mega that. You have mega fires, mega storms, mega drought, mega floods, once in 500-year floods, once in 1,000-year floods, once in 2 million year. It's a whole thing going on, and so it's a weird situation as far as you can have, with the water vapor in the air holds a lot more water, and you get these deluges of whatever, and then you get locked into a situation with the jet stream being shredded. It loops all around, and so you can have great weather one week, or okay weather, and then you can have horrible weather, and then you can have hot weather, and then you can have cold weather. So that's what happened with the jet stream. As far as the reason behind that is that the Arctic is no longer as cold as it used to be, and the temperature differences between the tropics and the Arctic are closing in on each other. So the jet stream no longer stays in the very far north. It does these weird loops, which is, they call it a vortex, or they call it whatever, Alberta Clipper, things like that. The name of it is just the jet stream shredded as a result of climate change. With the unweighting of the glaciers, such as all this meltwater going on and everything, you have a weight shift from the glaciers to the oceans. So my belief, and it's not put out a whole lot, is that what's going to happen is you're going to have more volcanoes, more earthquakes, because of the change in weight, which changes the magma underneath the surface. And the unweighting causes causes upheavals of the land, and also, of course, pushing down of the ocean because of more water weight in there. So you get a plate tectonic shift at some point as well, where things keep moving around. So you could end up with giant earthquakes. We could have a real situation where you get a shift in some landmass, and they call it an earthquake, but that's exactly what's happening. There's a shift going on. So eventually what happens with all these situations going on with the climate change is that you could actually have a system failure, collapse of civilization. So with that, people aren't paying attention, and they're letting the government and the media run rampant, and they sit by and they don't take proactive action with their daily lives. They sit there and watch TV or are entertained or go to sporting events or play on their electronics, and meanwhile the government is just stealing you blind. For example, in our country, the amount of money available that we use for programs like food stamps and cash assistance and housing and things like that, 57% of it this year in the budget is going towards the military, and another 7% is going towards the Veterans Administration. So basically we're spending 64 cents on every dollar in military functions. Well, that's a lesson from the Roman Empire as to how you get a collapse. And if we collapse, then the whole world collapses with us, because we provide a lot of food and grains to the world, and without us, they're in big trouble. And now you got climate change on top of that, you're going to have trouble growing grains in the Midwest, which is our bread basket, and also California, which will go into extreme droughts or floods. Who knows, with the possible El Nino coming, then you could have all sorts of situations happening. It's their own little science experiment. I'm going to stop 1 second because the truck's coming. It's loud. So you get this distraction, and what's happening is people aren't paying attention to the CO2 levels in the air. So right now the CO2 is 412, 413. Mauna Loa in Hawaii is cooking the books in that they're not displaying the graph, and when they do display the graph, it's a flat line, which is impossible. So it's really suspicious as to what's happening. Tanya's here right now with me. Hi Tanya, where are you?
I'm here.
She's here, yay! So you got Mauna Loa doing flatline on their graphs, and it's highly suspicious as to what's happening. And with the CO2 levels going up, I really suspect their numbers and all. So you can end up with food shortages with the system collapse, and that'll be the harbinger of things to come. You can't grow your food, and the farmers actually know all about this as to what's happening. They might call it weather change or whatever, but it's climate change. So you could have habitat loss, water loss, shelters, support systems such as homeless shelters or systems to feed you when you're starving to death. What happens after that is you get riots in the street. People become initially complacent and everything. They come out and they protest peacefully, but eventually it becomes violent. And you see that happening in Hong Kong, when the government doesn't listen to you. So what happens in response to that then is the government becomes fascist, or they fall apart altogether. Either way, they're going to fall apart in the end. It comes back to being aware as to we got a polar bear here. Oh yeah, that's amazing. We have a polar bear visiting. So it comes back to people being aware as to what's happening, and whether you're going to let your government continue to get away with all this and steal you blind, and then eventually the end game's all the same anyway. So you might as well sacrifice yourself and get out here and protest peacefully before all the violence starts, and hopefully things will change by then. Basically, we have created a pie, though. Anyone that bakes a pie would know that if you're going to walk away from it, you want to cook it at a low temperature, probably between 250 to 280, and that's the same amount in parts per million you want for the Earth. But 350.org says that's safe, but 350 you're going to get a burning of your pie, and that's what's going to happen with the planet. But right now we're at 412, and the real conversion, if you factor in nitrous oxide, and then also I can't remember, methane, you get a real conversion of 670 parts per million. So the ingredients are all there for the pie to become a disaster as far as the oven goes. And people need to wake up as to what's happening. Eventually, what you're going to have in the Himalayas and the Alps this year, I think is going to happen, is you're going to have glacier lakes forming, and they're held up by terminal moraines or ice jams. And you're going to have an unleashing of massive amounts of water downstream. And when that happens, you're going to have people in the middle of rock slides and mud flows, and they can't get out of it. It's going to wipe out entire villages downstreams in the Himalayas and Alps. Mark my words. 90% of the world's ice is in Antarctica, with 66% of the world's freshwater there. Some of the glaciers are 3 miles thick, so it has the potential of raising up sea levels up to 200 some feet, but we don't need that much to really cause a severe problem. A good rise of 5 to 10 feet, and that's coming, and supposedly we've already locked in 120 feet of sea level rise. But with any kind of rise like that, it's going to destroy all seaports, and the world again will have a collapse situation. The oceans have absorbed equivalent to 5 atomic bombs per second going off, and they have absorbed over 3 billion atomic bombs in heat in the last 70 years. So it's 5 atomic bombs per second in heat is being put into the oceans due to our not paying attention. So my estimate is that by 2023, everybody will know somebody who's affected by climate change. And by 2026, I think the whole planet will have trouble surviving. Hold on. This drug's for you. Remember that. Everyone's going to be drinking pretty soon. 2026, so everyone will have trouble surviving. Not necessarily because you don't have clothing or whatever, but you won't have food. The distribution system will break down. When your politicians start disappearing, you know something's up, or the rich people. So not paying attention to this political sickness going on and the dogma of win at all costs. Both sides in the United States just care about winning. They don't care about, as far as you, the person, because if they did, they would be taking action on this climate change issue. They say it's an existential threat. And if your house was collapsing and on fire, would you worry about the flowers out in the garden? No, you're going to save your life, try to save the house, and do whatever you can. So this mouthing of existential threat is a bunch of bullshit, and both sides do it, and Trump especially just denies it outright. So he's committed crimes against humanity in his actions and all. So he's a horrible person as far as climate change goes, and allowing people like this, whether a Democrat or Republican, to stay in office is a suicide move. We will all be profoundly affected by this very soon, and in the United States, Australia is already feeling it. That's white world. Brown world is already feeling it and has already felt it. So the Democratic debate was this Tuesday, I think it was, Wednesday, and they covered climate change for a whole 9 minutes. They admonished Bernie Sanders for talking about it, said, we'll talk about it later. Well, he talked about it for 9 minutes out of 135 minutes. That's 6% of our lives being in jeopardy and in a dire situation was devoted to climate change. And that's it, 6%. So when these organizations say they're behind you, the media is, whatever, no, they're not. And they are committing crimes against humanity by not reporting the truth as to what's happening. So people, you need to rise up and get on the street and, put boots on the ground and make this very uncomfortable for the politicians. What you're doing is not working. You cannot wait for votes to change things. Every year, 4 years and everything does not, you have no idea what you're talking about. So waiting 4 years to change things is not going to, change anything at all. It's just the same situation over and over again. So you need to get out and actually do something. I hope, to see more people eventually understand it's cold out, but you know what? Hell's coming. It's going to be plenty hot. So, in spite of the cold, you got to sacrifice yourself for an hour or two, do your own protests, get out there on the street, get your kids involved, tell them what's happening, because they need to know what's happening. They're going to be really pissed at you when they find out you knew all along and didn't do anything. So next protest is number 59. That'll be January 24th at 2 p.m. See you later.